Welcome back to my North Coast New Horizons. I'm dear darling. I shall see what's going on a lovely island of Fawnhollow today, where we're going to be vibing. I guess I'll be talking about my little trip I sort of had a couple of days ago over the weekend. I mean, there's not really much to say. There's only so much I'm going to say, obviously, because of it's my own personal life. But I will talk about generally what it was. It was generally a camping trip, which is I'm not going to say it's the first time I've done a camping trip, because I actually did one back in how old was I back then? 13? No, that doesn't sound right. 15 maybe or so. Hold on. What's year 9? Is that year 7 is 11, 12, 13, 14. So I was 14. Anyway, hold on. We'll get to that in a second. Hello everyone. Right now in Fawnhallow, it's 3:34 p.m. on Tuesday, March 29, 2022. So we know Sahara is visiting. Yeah, what I was going to say was the fact that I went on a camping trip. But it's not my first time I've done. When I was 14, there was a school trip where we were basically, for 5 days, went on a sort of camping, hiking trip. Which you might be like, that doesn't super sound like, your sort of thing. Dear, I know you like nature and that sort of thing, but you're not particularly into hiking, are you? And I'm like, no, I suppose not. But camping, I suppose, and roughing it, quote, quote, is not... well, roughing it makes me sound so low, like old. It's not really my sort of thing, I suppose, and part of that I'm sure is due to my strong desire for everything to be clean and neat, and you can't always have everything being so clean and neat when you're just in the wilderness or whatever. We weren't wild camping because I believe from my research that's actually like kind of mostly illegal in UK. It's not like totally illegal or something. It's more like there's a lot of privately owned land or something. It's not. No, it's Tuesday. I was like, it's not a fishing tony today, is it? I was losing my mind. I was like, why is Dilly wearing something I've never seen her wear before? Yeah, so we didn't do a wild camping. We just camped at a place. We camped on a lovely farm, actually. At a campsite, because that's kind of what you're meant to do. I know you can do wild camping like in some of the national parks or like areas of outstanding natural beauty in the UK. You can actually wild camp. It's technically not legal, but it's sort of just like a thing where people do it anyway, as long as people are respectful about it. Then the authorities of the national parks and don't seem to mostly care, but that, kind of varies from region to region. I would not get your camping information in the UK, especially from me, because I'm quite a novice. But yeah, it was a fun experience. It was only for 2 nights, I suppose, and we did a lot of walking about. We did usual camping things. Of course, made our own food. We did a lot of pasta, and it was just an overall fun experience, because this time I was doing it with some of my friends who, to be fair, were school friends, but a lot of them were on half of them were on a different trip, I suppose. So it was only 4 of us in a tent. You might be able to tell I went camping because I got a little bit of a sniffle right now. I suppose a little bit cold. Not COVID, you might ask, because I did test myself and no, it did not come out of that, so I assume it's just some sort of general flu. Perhaps a medium cold, which is weird to think about, because I wasn't particularly cold, so my thoughts a bit scattered. I don't really know where to really begin with camping. If you haven't been camping, then well, I don't know. I was going to be like, I recommend it, but I suppose you'd probably know better than I would, if it's your sort of thing that you'd be interested in. And part of me was very interested in it, because I was like, I do like nature. I like the sort of vibes you get, just sort of a coziness, I suppose, of it all. But also part of me is just like, well, not having access to like hotel-like facilities or being in a house. Oh yeah, we should actually. Who's this diary belong to? I don't know if I actually checked it. Personal planner. This is probably Lily's, from what I can tell. Yeah, so I like the vibe of it. I like the nature-esque aspect, etc., etc. But of course, without access to normal, facilities, I suppose, which you take for granted when you live in like a house, I suppose, it kind of makes me go, I wonder if I would truly enjoy it, that sort of thing. Especially because I tend to like my hands to be particularly clean, etc., etc. But no, it turns out I just thoroughly enjoyed it anyway. But there were bits and pieces I didn't particularly enjoy. Like, we didn't have air mattresses, so I just brought some like yoga mats or some like floor mats to basically try and sort of cushion against the ground. It was not the most comfortable thing in the world. The ground is a bit uneven. The ground is also not particularly soft, is what I'll say. It's not like concrete or anything, but it doesn't really have much give as much as a mattress does. So I ended up having a very sore back because it was now impossible to end up sleeping on my side. I found out because it basically was like all the pressure of sleeping on my side is put directly onto my hip, and hip and like my arm, which was, you know, not the most comfortable thing in the world. And sleeping on my back was basically the only thing option I had. But then there's like this area just like, I guess kind of like my lower back, or just like kind of above your tailbone, that sort of area. It's kind of like where all the pressure was when I was sleeping on my back, if I had my legs out straight. And if I like bent my legs, and you know, I suppose it kind of put a lot of pressure on like the soles of my feet. So, you know, it's a very like minuscule problem to have. It's just for sleeping was a little bit uncomfortable at night time. But it was like, you know, it was just a thing where I was like, man, you know, I see why air mattresses are very important. So of course we were doing wild camping, so we could we weren't doing wild camping, sorry, we were doing camping with like a car. We could bring a lot of different equipment and that sort of things to try and make life easier, but none of us had air mattress, so we didn't bring any. And you know, certainly if I was to do it again, definitely would invest in some air mattresses, or at least, you know, like tons and tons of pillows to sleep on or something. Because I am a heavy sleeper, but I suppose getting to sleep on just like a very heavy, very hard flooring, I suppose, in the first place is already quite difficult. How much money do we have? 18,000, that's enough to buy one of everything from Sahara, so we will do. Yeah, the tent was roomy enough, and it was honestly quite cozy. That's what I'll say. And honestly, tent, not the hardest thing to put up in the world. Because I had to do it before back on that school trip when I was like 14 or something, and I talked to my friends. Some of my friends were like, one of them, he had like never put up a tent before, so he kind of wanted to do it without instructions, that sort of thing, and he wanted like all of us to do it without instructions. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I kind of like remember how to do how to put up a tent of that sort of things. Not another small rug. No, I don't want to buy a small rag. I want to buy a medium rag. I also just saw Fawn pass us by, so I need to make sure that we actually talk to her. Yeah, so he put up a tent with someone else, and you know, I remembered most of it, is what I was saying about putting up a tent. And I did forget one particular thing, but it's not all that difficult. From what I was saying, I mean, we had a very simple tent. I don't really know what type of tent it is. I can't really tell you. I guess like a regular canvas tent. It's got like an inside and outside. It's got the like the what do you call them? The bar things that you feed through the sleeves to like hold it up. I don't know. It's got a front bit and a back bit. Anyway, that's not really important part. It was just a tent. It was a little bit cold, I suppose, inside the tent, but it, you know, it's kind of to be expected when camping. We are camping like at springtime. It's not like it's summertime where you could probably just get quite warm nights. Although UK's probably not got the warmest nights in the world, is what I say. I don't know if we have actually exchanged tickets to give to you, Sahara, so we should probably check that, because it's been a while, I think. No, not a rug. I want to think of other things to say, but then I can't remember what else to say. Yeah, it wasn't all that cold, I suppose, during the night, because I put on like multiple layers. It was a thing where, like, you know, because I tend to be over prepared for these sort of things, I tend to do research beforehand about well, stuff, just to make sure I can, you know I'm a little bit more in the know. And a lot of things that I just read when I was like, oh, beginner's guide to camping, or etc, and you know, things like that. A lot of things I read was just like, oh, you know, it gets really cold at night, make sure you bring more layers rather than less layers, and put on more layers than you might expect. And it's a funny moment, because, you know, when it was like getting evening, you know, of course the actual day itself, it was actually quite nice weather. Whatever, that weekend it was quite warm and that sort of thing, and we were just joking around, be like, oh, you know, probably don't even need all that many layers. Might not even sleep with a sleeping bag on today, because that's how warm it is. I'll see you around. I forgot that we are holding Lily's planner, so we need to go over. Or is this one not Lily's planner? This might be one of the Sneety Village's planners. I forget. Anyway, we saw Lily fishing over here, so it shouldn't be too long. We do have to sort of run into you to make you stop fishing, otherwise we can't give you the planner, huh? So I put a lot of layers, and I like brought a lot of layers as well. Lily is very unperturbed by what we're doing. Come on, Lily. Hey, are you gonna let us give us a thing to you? Oh, there we go. It's spam talk to her. I'm trying to figure out what I was saying. Sorry, my thoughts a bit scattered, and I'm clearly not used to actually talking. Oh, this is a one. I always get it confused with normal villagers, but it's actually a snooty villagers notepad. But at least I know now, I suppose. Yeah, what was I saying? So I put on like multiple layers, and one thing I kept on reading was the fact that it was like you should bring like a hat to put on your head while you're sleeping, because it can get very cold, and you know, especially when your hat gets very your head might get very cold. I know it's a myth that you lose most heat for your head. That's not actually a thing which happens. It was like due to a faulty experiment. Well, not due to a faulty experiment. It was like misconstrued information from an experiment, because of the person they were doing an experiment on was not wearing a hat or something, and not wearing socks. I don't really remember, but anyway, it was a good idea to put a hat on your head. And you know how your sleeping bag, it also has like this drawstring part, which you can use to sort of tighten up and cocoon yourself if it gets really cold. So that's what I did. Turns out I was the only one of my friends to actually do that, because I was apparently the only one of my friends to read up a little bit beforehand about beginner mistakes, I suppose, when it comes to camping. But you know, that's fair enough. I think I'm unreasonably, not paranoid about that sort of thing, but unreasonably like neurotic about that sort of thing. You know, double checking that sort of thing. You know, being like, make sure I bring all the sort of relevant things. You know, looking up checklists, being like, oh, what things would I not think to bring, but we definitely do need to bring. Thing like plastic bin bag, or just bin bags in general. Washing up stuff like sponges, etc, etc. But luckily the place we were staying on had like a mini sort of campsite shop where you can buy basic goods, because even though it's a farm, and I assume they get a lot of traffic through campers coming in and out who probably need some supplies, so they got a basic stock of things, which is, you know, honestly very convenient, probably just good practice. It was also insanely cheap, the campsite we stayed at, which is utterly crazy. Of course, well, basically the barest bones of facilities. There was a toilet, there was a shower, not a toilet, okay, but there were like 4 toilets. There were like 4 showers, 2 of which were broken or something, and 1 of which was broken. I can't remember. There was like a washing up station for dishes. It was all very simple and that sort of thing. And of course, it was in a farm, but there was not like any charging stations or electricity. It was no electricity, that sort of thing. But it was very nice. Is exactly what I say. Because one of the greatest things, of course, about camping is the fact that you're outside and you get to watch properly the sunset and the sunrise and constellations at night, which is honestly one of the greatest sights, I suppose. Like, you know, so watching the sunset those 2 nights were utterly fantastic, and it was something I don't think you'd ever get bored of watching it. It's beautiful to see the night sky as well, because of course I don't live quite like in the city. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I live like in a small town is probably how I describe it, but even then it's quite difficult to see the nights at the stars at night, because you know, light pollution. I still see them reasonably often, I suppose, but the amount of clarity you see them with compared to in my small town compared to that basically much more rural farmstead location is completely different. And I suppose it also feels completely different seeing like rather than seeing like settlements, I suppose. Even though there's a lot of forest around me where I live now, you can still see a lot of like the neighbourhoods and houses and that sort of thing. Seeing that sort of scenery compared to the rolling countryside farmland hills and the stars in the sky. And what it basically made me want to do was basically like get like a constellation map out, be like, can I recognise these constellations, or that sort of thing. It's one of the things I always tell myself to learn about constellations, but I just never do. I don't really know why. Maybe someday I should get a nice telescope for that sort of thing. No, hold on a second. A constellation chart, that's what I wanted, because there's one constellation I kept seeing, but I couldn't figure out what constellation it was, but it looked very familiar, and I thought it was Orion, but I'm not actually sure if it was Orion. Let's see, Orion constellation, because there was like a signature of 3 belts. I assume it must be Orion, but I don't actually know, because it definitely has these sort of, they're basically 3 stars really close to each other, and they're made like an H shape in my mind. And I know those 3 stars are Orion's belt. I wonder if I took a picture of it. I did try and take a picture of the stars, but of course it doesn't come out with most crystal clear clarity. So I'm gonna have to sort of scroll down here while I'm trying to figure out if I actually did take a. Oh, I did take a picture. Is that Orion? I don't think that's Orion. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the placement of the stars. It doesn't look quite right. I don't know what this is. And honestly, I don't know how to read a constellation chart. or constellation map. There was quite a few constellations. Is it Orion? I don't think it is Orion. I also saw one which I thought was the Big Dipper or Ursa Major or Ursa Minor. I don't really know which one's which, to be honest. Yeah, again, but that's also one I'm just like, oh yeah, we saw Amelia walking about, didn't we? I was gonna go run to Amelia's house, but I remember we saw her in Town Hall. But that's a sort of thing where I'm like, I don't really know if that's what it was, or if that's just what I thought it was. But it was super beautiful seeing the night sky, and it was super beautiful seeing the sunset as well, even though the sunset was a little bit blocked off by some of the trees that we saw. Trees in the way. I suppose I should just sort of glance through my photos, and it will help remind me of the things we did. Oh yeah, we basically completely stuffed my friend's car with all our camping gear and that sort of things, and it made me just sort of feel like, oh, I wonder if we're like extraordinarily bad at camping or something. Why are we bringing so much stuff? Like, I feel like we shouldn't have that much stuff. But then it turns out all of the stuff we bought, almost all of the stuff we bought, was utterly necessary, to be perfectly honest. So it's not really that big a surprise that we ended up bringing a huge amount of things. Turns out that was just what it was needed. But it was really nice to see all that sort of countryside. This is us, like, just looking through stuff. Of course, we got to stop up at service stations on the way. It was a reasonably long drive, but not like outrageous. It was like 3 hours or something. Do we need to sell any of this other stuff? Not really. I don't even know why I came in here, to be honest. Yeah, so we had a little bit of fast food. I must say, I've eaten very unhealthily over the past weekend or so. I probably put on too much weight, and I don't really want to think about that too much. So we had like a bit of McDonald's on the way there, and here we set up camp. It was very nice, and it was a little bit of a strange thing because the way we put around the tent was basically everyone else at campsites. There weren't that many people. I'd say about like 9 other campsites, and there was quite a huge amount of space. So we weren't exactly starved for space. Like the nearest camper to us was still probably a good like 5 meters away from us or something. And all the others were like up to like 50 or 100 meters away from us. And, like we had a lot of space, but everyone else put their like tents down facing inwards into the fields. But we were just like, oh, we should face the sunset, shouldn't we? So we probably looked like utter weirdos putting our tents down on the outside of a field, looking outside of a field, just turned away from everyone else. But it was very nice because it meant that we could all like lie down in the tent and watch out, have a door open and watch the sunset. So really, we might have been a bit, against the grain, I suppose, with how we were doing things. But that, I think, we're perfectly fine with, because it was honestly a lot nicer, I think, in that aspect. We got to appreciate nature for what it was. Oh yeah, we had a nice like chicken coop, and we cooked a meal the first day. First day we had a lot of pasta, which we bought from not a local supermarket, well, a supermarket in a nearby town, I suppose is what I say. And we had a tiny like little gas burner. And I think that made us, I suppose, particularly feel like novices or amateurs when it came to camping, was the fact that we looked around at everyone else and we had like these roaring campfires and fire pits, and we're just like, oh man, maybe we should do that. But we didn't. We had a little sort of gas burner stove top, and it was very nice. It was, obviously I didn't eat it. No, I mean, hold on. Obviously I did eat it, but obviously when I ate it, it was not like, in my mind I was like, oh, this is the greatest meal I've ever had. Like from a logistical standpoint, obviously it cannot be the greatest meal I've ever had, because it was just, it was very crude, I suppose, what we did. But even eating it, I was like, oh, something about this, just the extra specialness, I suppose, the fact that we cooked it ourselves. It's like, not really in the wilderness, but it kind of like feels like a wilderness. It feels kind of like a safe wilderness. Made it super, super delicious. Even if it was just plain pesto pasta with a little bit of chicken with it. And the next day we went on a really nice walk. It was a long walk. My feet and legs utterly killed after it. Made me sort of reflect on how unfit I am, I suppose. That entire walking session. But then, it made sleeping that day even more relaxing, I suppose. Or to a certain extent. Oh, also we watched Turning Red, I suppose, on my camping trip, which I suppose I'll talk about in tomorrow's episode, or that sort of thing. I'm not going to talk about it in this episode. We're already talking about camping. Here we go. We were cooking more pasta. We had, because we stayed on a farm. They had like a farming shop, which sold like local produce. I don't actually know what the main export for this farm was. I think it was milk. was my assumption, but we didn't actually buy the milk. I don't remember why. It was just, there was a lot of things. We were only there 2 nights, so there were like so many things that we wanted to eat and try and that sort of thing. So it was sort of like we really had so much opportunity in the first place. But we definitely should have bought the milk, but no harm, no foul, I suppose. I was going to say badums, but it's not really much of a badums. It's sort of like a vaguely farm-esque pun. What do we do? Have we found our crafter for today? I don't think we found our crafter for today, so we should probably do that. But they sold like local produce, and one of the things they sold was bacon from I don't know what farm nearby sold the bacon or whatever, but I wasn't there to buy the bacon. But I don't know what you just said about Vivian, but that was interesting. The friends just bought like 2 packs of bacon, which ended up having like somewhere in the vicinity of like 25 pieces of bacon between like with the 2 packs shared together, which is just an utterly absurd amount of bacon. Really good, mind you. It's been a very long time since I've had bacon. I don't really have it that often. Nowadays I don't tend to eat all that much often. All that much often? That's not a word. That's not a phrase. All that often, but it was nice to eat, I suppose. It was. Well, I suppose anything might have been quite nice to eat, I suppose, at that point. But it was pretty good. But it was just an utterly absurd amount of bacon, and probably a huge amount of fat, and probably a big contributor to possibly my weight gain over the weekend. And then the next day after that, we went to a local theme park, which was very lovely as well. my friends aren't so much as theme park goers as much as I am, so there's not really much to say in that sort of regard. I think I talked about theme parks before. I must have. In a previous Animal Crossing episode, but that's neither here nor there. Here we're talking about camping. And honestly, the camping experience, extremely fun. What, 10 out of 10? Yeah, okay, maybe it wouldn't be 10 out of 10. The nights were a little bit more uncomfortable than expected because of a lack of comfortable ground to sleep on, I suppose. I suppose it was just fortunate enough that I wasn't particularly cold, because I was over-prepared and bought so many layers. Like I had like an inside thermal layer. I wore like my usual pajama t-shirt on top of that, and then I wore like usual like casual sweater on top of that. And of course I had like pajama bottoms on, and then I had like these long like knee-high socks or something, or even longer than knee-high socks I suppose, on as well, just to make sure my feet were definitely toasty and warm, and a beanie on top. And then of course I had my sleeping bag, which was graded to definitely work in, I can't remember what sort of weather it was graded on, minus 5 degrees Celsius maybe. So I was super toasty, super warm. That was never a concern in my mind, which was always nice to say. I don't know what else. I suppose we didn't really have much of a way of a lamp or like lighting at night, because obviously it gets kind of dark when there's no like light source. The only light source is the moon, which is not always a full moon, so it's not exactly the brightest thing in the sky. And especially when you're inside a tent, it gets quite dark a little bit. What are we? I'm looking for Sahara. That's what I'm doing. So one thing we definitely should have brought was more like lighting options. To be fair, my friend did bring like this sort of outdoor lamp, the solar, like it's sort of like those solar powered garden lights or whatever. Except I'm not really sure if it's meant to be a garden light or whatever it was in particular, and it actually proved particularly useful, I suppose, on the second day when we did it. And you might say, why wasn't it useful on the first day? Well, on the first day we didn't actually charge it up or anything, so it didn't last particularly long, which is quite our folly. But on the second day, it was rather successful, illuminating for us for quite a while. But even then, it's still a little bit restrictive, I suppose. We should have definitely bought like more headlamps. Head torches would have come in clutch. And I honestly thought I had a head torch, but it turns out it broke a while ago, so didn't have it anymore. I suppose is how I put it. But overall, well, let's go do the daily exercises. Overall, camping was a very fun experience. I'm not sure if I'm quite the sort of person who would go wild camping or anything like that. I'm particularly fine with having camping on a campsite with at least basic facilities. There's basic facilities I wouldn't do without. I definitely like having plumbing systems, I suppose, with a toilet. Okay, maybe not full plumbing systems, but at least like a portaloo or something. I like having a sink basically to sort of wash up and a shower to actually like have a shower in. By the way, that shower was fantastic. As you can imagine, you know, you probably didn't have a shower every single day. I was staying at a campsite, you know, had it every other day, but it was only 2 nights, so you know, we had 1 shower, and that shower was probably one of the most refreshing showers I've ever had, because of course it had been relatively cold, all that sort of thing. It was still quite a cold night that day, you know, we were really tired and exhausted after a whole day of walking, and probably, you know, a little bit sweaty as well, just getting into that shower, even though we were only allowed in it for 6 minutes. It was incredibly nice. There's really not much else I can say about that sort of thing. I think it was just interesting to see all the other people camping who were clearly much more experienced than us and clearly had many more things. Like there was some people opposite us and like a sort of camper van, and then they had like a huge roaring fire one of the nights, and I was like, oh, that just looks so nice. So we didn't do all the typical camping things. We didn't have like a campfire, didn't roast marshmallows on it to make s'mores, but you know, it was a good sort of introductory thing to camping. A good sort of refresher compared to like the camping school trip I did like how many years ago? 10 years ago? Oh my word. That was so long ago. Fun fact I suppose about that camping trip is I actually had to leave early because I actually ended up dislocating my shoulder on the trip, which is a little bit sad news to end up on, but luckily it only meant I missed out the last day of the trip, which is a bit of a shame, but you know, so be it. I forgot what I was saying. That was a really nice, relatively nice sort of camping trip. That was a different one. That was like mostly hiking. I suppose throughout the whole day, we didn't have to hike with carrying our tents, thank the Lord, I suppose, for that sort of thing. But we did have to carry like all our supplies each and every day. We had to carry our sleeping bag, we had to carry other stuff. I assume we had to carry our sleeping bag. It's been such a long time, I don't even remember. Our sleeping bag, our clothes, and our toiletries, etc, etc. And that was like a 5-night thing. No, 4-night thing? I don't know. That was a fun experience. And this was like a nice sort of refresher fun experience, except for, you know, we're not bound down to the teacher's own sort of guidance and scheduling or what we had to do each and every day. Despite the fact teachers made very fun activities, of course, for us to do every single day. It was sort of just like a, you know, it's nice to have your own, you call your own shots, you sort of be in charge and your own responsibility of your own life, you know? You get me? You feel me? Anyway, that was my camping holiday, and it was quite nice. I don't know, have you ever been camping before? I'm not sure what a question for today would be. Have you ever been camping? What was your camping holiday like? Do you want to go camping? And just talking about camping, you know how it is. But anyway, if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Any likes, comments, subscription, shares are greatly appreciated. Join my Dear Darling Discord, follow me on Twitter down below. Hope you see each other again, but for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye-bye for now.